Welcome back, students. Our next topic in the series of topics in chemotherapy is sulfonamides, a group of antimicrobials. The learning objectives of this session include first, to study the pharmacology of sulfonamides, that is, to know the history of this drug, the classification, antibacterial spectrum, mechanism of action, acquired resistance, kinetics, therapeutic uses, adverse reactions, and we'll be discussing on the drug interactions as well. And second objective is to study a special drug called as cotrimoxazole coming under this class, which is a combination of trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole. Well, historically, sulfonamides were the first agents, chemotherapeutic agents, which were used systemically for bacterial infections in man. Now, it was a scientist named Gelmo in 1908 who synthesized a dye, intermediary dye called sulfanilamide, and he found that this dye was used as urinary antiseptic. In urinary infections, it was found to be very effective. Later on, in 1935, another scientist called Gerard Domac, what he did was he worked on azodyes further. And then he reported that one of the red dye called prontosil, also called as prontosil rubrum, that protected mice from streptococcal infection. And for this discovery also, he got the Nobel Prize in 1938. Now, this dye was later on found to be very effective, and it was found to be broken down to sulfanilamide, and it was very effective in the treatment of sepsis and meningococcal infections. However, the bacteriostatic effect of these sulfonamides, it had a bacteriostatic action. It did not have bactericidal effect. Sulfonamides had bacteriostatic action. That's why because of this effect, sulfonamides had a very short period of clinical life because of this effect, and secondly, due to the introduction of antibiotics. Much before antibiotics were introduced, sulfonamides had already come into the picture for the treatment of urinary tract infection and was being used as a synthetic antimicrobial. But later on, because of its bacteriostatic action, antibiotics had later predominated. Then what happened was in mid 1970s, now this new drug called cotrimoxazole was introduced, and that resulted in again increased use of sulfonamide. Now coming to the structure of sulfonamides, basically now this compound sulfonamide, they have a group which is having basic resemblance to para-aminobenzoic acid, also called as PABA, PABA. Now they are white crystalline powders basically, and mostly having a very poor solubility in water. The characteristic feature of this structure of this sulfonamide is that the para-amino group is required, is very essential for its antibacterial activity. And the second part is sulfomoyl group. The sulfomoyl group, that is the SO2NH2 group, is not essential for antibacterial activity as such, but the requirement is the sulfur atom should be directly linked to the benzene ring for its activity. Then subsequently, chemical manipulation of this particular structure having close resemblance to PABA led to many other sulfomoyl drugs and resulted in other uses like diuretics, like carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, thiazides, furosemide. They are all coming from the family of sulfonamides, these drugs. Now coming to the actual classification of this drug. Now based on the absorption and excretion patterns, that is a kinetic pattern, they are classified as drugs which can be used systemically or which has local application. Under systemic use, you've got short acting drugs, intermediate acting drugs, and long acting drugs. Short acting drugs like sulfadiazine, which has a property of passing through the blood brain barrier. Sulfadiazine and sulfamethoxazole, these two drugs have the property of crossing the blood brain barrier. Next, sulfamethizole or sulfasalazine. Sulfasalazine is used in ulcerative colitis, and sulfacetin. Under intermediate acting agent, we have got drugs like sulfamethoxazole, which is a component of cotrimoxazole, and sulfapyridine. And under long acting drug, we have got sulfadoxine, which is used in the treatment also for protozoal infection. The local applications are mainly ophthalmic and topical in nature. We have got sulfacetamide as a drug, which is used for ophthalmic use. And for topical use, mostly for burns and all, we are aware of these drugs, mefenide and silver sulfadiazine, very commonly used for the treatment of burns. Well, talking about the antibacterial spectrum, the sulfonamides have a wide range of antibacterial activity against both gram-positive and gram-negative microorganisms. Now, these can include diplococci, bacilli, actinomyces, nocardia, chlamydia, and some protozoa. The gonococci, meningococci, and shigella organisms are very sensitive, while strains of Klebsiella, Enterobacter, Proteus may be sensitive to very high concentrations of sulfonamides, and several species of Staphylococci, Enterococci, Clostridia, and Pseudomonas are highly resistant to sulfonamide. Now, this antibacterial spectrum has now been seriously restricted by acquired bacterial resistance. So, we are going to see about that a little later. Next is the mechanism of action of sulfonamides. Now, we are aware that these drugs, they inhibit bacterial growth. They don't kill the bacteria because they have a bacteriostatic effect. Now, sulfonamides are antimetabolites of PABA. Now, what are antimetabolites? Antimetabolites are those drugs that interfere with one or more enzymes or their reactions that are necessary for the DNA synthesis. Now, in case of bacteria, in order to produce folic acid, PABA is the original moiety which is required. Now, without PABA, folic acid cannot be synthesized. Now, these drugs, sulfonamides, will inhibit the enzyme which is involved in the conversion of PABA to an intermediate component. Now, in the process of DNA synthesis in bacteria, folinic acid is required, which is produced from PABA. As against in mammals, they require preformed folic acid. We consume folic acid from the food. We do not produce folic acid within the body. But in bacteria, they will produce it within the body by using this substrate called PABA. And what does our sulfonamides do? They are antimetabolites of PABA. That means they will interfere with those enzymes which are involved in the DNA synthesis in bacteria. So their action is bacteriostatic, and they act by competitive antagonism. This is very interesting. Now, what do you mean by competitive antagonism in this case? Now, here it means that if the PABA concentration is more as compared to sulfonamides, then the effect of sulfonamides will not be seen, will not be observed. So they are basically structural analogues of PABA, and they prevent the bacterial utilization of PABA for the synthesis of folic acid. And these folic acid derivatives are essential for purine and ultimately DNA synthesis in bacteria. They competitively inhibit the enzyme dihydrofolic acid synthetase. Dihydrofolic acid synthetase is an enzyme which is involved in the conversion of PABA to dihydrofolic acid. Then there is one more enzyme which helps in the conversion of dihydrofolic acid to tetrahydrofolic acid called as dihydrofolic acid reductase. And subsequently, tetrahydrofolic acid is converted to folinic acid, which is subsequently used in DNA synthesis. In which cases does sulfonamides, they do not show the effect. They insensitive to sulfonamides basically are observed when PABA-like substances are present in high concentration in pus. Whenever there is an infection, so PABA is produced. Now, this PABA-like substances which are present in high concentration in the pus, if it is much higher than the surrounding sulfonamide drug, then the sulfonamide activity or effect will not be seen. That is in one case. And in second case, when the bacteria, they utilize preformed, there are certain bacteria which will utilize preformed folic acid. So in such cases also, sulfonamides will not be effective. So the mechanism of action basically is that they work as antimetabolites of PABA, and they are Acting by competitive antagonism, having structural analogs to PABA, they will inhibit the enzyme dietofolic acid synthetase. So this will help in prevention of conversion of PABA to folic acid. So this is the action of sulfonamide. Now we talked about resistance, acquired resistance to sulfonamides also a little earlier. Now what does this acquired resistance mean? Now resistance to sulfonamides possibly originates from random mutation and selection or transfer of resistance of plasmids. Now, once such resistance is maximally developed, it is usually persistent and irreversible. So, this is very surprising to note that the resistance which is once it is acquired to sulfonamides, it becomes irreversible. Now, what are the mechanisms which are involved in development of such a resistance? One, there could be an alteration in the enzyme that utilizes PABA. That is possible. Second, an increased capacity to destroy the drug. The bacteria can have an increased capacity to destroy the drug. Third, an alternative metabolic pathway for the synthesis of essential metabolites. Now, the bacteria are so chalak that different pathway itself is found by them in order to produce the folic acid. Fourth, an increased production of an essential metabolite. So they produce it in such a large quantity that it doesn't work by the competitive antagonism principle. The resistance of some bacteria to sulfonamides is based on their ability to synthesize enough of PABA to antagonize the drug. Well, talking about the kinetics of sulfonamides, now these drugs are very well absorbed from the gastrointestinal tract. 70 to 100% of oral dose is well absorbed. They are bound to protein, but in the liver it undergoes a process of metabolism called acetylation, wherein the acetylated products have no antibacterial effect, but they retain their toxic potential. Now this becomes more relevant with regard to its toxic potential and adverse effects. And finally, these products are excreted by glomerular filtration and tubular excretion. And the clearance of these metabolites is more in alkaline urine, possibly due to reduced tubular reabsorption. Talking about the therapeutic uses, the sulfonamides have remained the first choice of drugs in very few situations. However, the sulfonamides are easy to administer, they are cheap, and their use is rarely followed by superinfection. They are used in the treatment of urinary tract infection, ulcerative colitis, respiratory tract infections, meningococcal meningitis, venereal diseases, and other chlamydial infections. They are also tried in systemic mycosis and protozoal infections, also used in burns and in skin disorders. Talking about the adverse reactions of sulfonamides, a characteristic adverse reaction is observed with sulfonamides. One is hypersensitivity reactions. Allergic skin rashes are frequent complications of sulfa therapy, but a more serious form of adverse effects like systemic lupus erythematosus, wherein the body's own immune system attacks its own healthy cells. This is systemic lupus erythematosus. Exfoliative dermatitis, wherein there is a widespread erythema and scaling of the skin, or Steven Johnson syndrome. This is a flu-like symptom which is followed by painful red purplish rash. It's a serious disorder of the skin with mucous membranes, flu-like symptom. Second is renal damage. We are aware about the acetylated compound as one of the metabolite product of sulfonamide. This in urinary pH, it forms crystals. So crystal urea can occur. This can cause blockade in the kidney tubules or ureter or bladder due to the deposition of crystalline aggregates of the sulfa drug or their insoluble metabolites. So with this, what happens is there is hematuria, oliguria, anuria, and fatal uremia. The incidence of crystalluria is low when the soluble sulfonamides are used. The soluble sulfonamides, namely sulfamethoxazole and sulfamethizole. These two are soluble sulfonamides. So the incidence of renal damage is less. And crystalluria can be avoided by high fluid intake, ensuring good urine output, and maintaining alkaline reaction in the urine. The next is blood dyscrasis. Blood dyscrasis is very rare, but it can be potentially fatal. Hemolytic anemia occurs in glucose 6 phosphate deficient patients. Acute hemolytic anemia may develop in the first 2 to 7 days of therapy. This could be followed by granulocytosis or thrombocytopenia, or aplastic anemia may also occur. In fetus and neonates, it produces a condition called as kernicterus. Now these drugs, sulfonamides, they displace bilirubin from the plasma protein, causing hyperbilirubinemia. The bilirubin levels are raised in the blood, and this leads to a condition called as kernicterus in premature infants. So, having a teratogenic potential, these drugs have been shown to be avoided. They should be avoided during pregnancy. So these drugs, sulfonamides, are contraindicated in patients with sulfa hypersensitivity or advanced kidney disease or liver disease, blood dyscrasis, and impaired kidney function. Pregnant women should not receive sulfonamides because of the possible transmission to the fetus. It could be teratogenic and due to the danger of kernicterus. Talking about the drug interaction, sulfonamides increase the effect of oral anticoagulants. This occurs by displacing these drugs from their binding sites on plasma albumin. So therefore, they potentiate the action of oral sulfonylureas or hypoglycemic agents, thiazides, and the uricosuric agents. Well, on the other hand, drugs like probenecid, salicylates, indomethacin, they displace sulfonamides from their binding sites and they increase the concentration in the plasma. Now, coming to this interesting part, a characteristic drug under sulfonamides called cotrimoxazole, which is a combination of trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole. A very interesting part of sulfonamides. Now, originally, trimethoprim, which is a diaminopyrimidine, was tried in the treatment of malaria. But later, it was marketed in combination with sulfamethoxazole as cotrimoxazole. Now, trimethoprim is chemically related to pyrimethamine. The introduction of combination of trimethoprim with sulfamethoxazole is a very important advance in the application of antimicrobial agents because these two drugs, they act on sequential steps leading to the folate deficiency in susceptible organisms, thereby having a synergistic effect. Now, most of the commercial preparations of cotrimoxazole, they have a mixture of sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim in a fixed ratio of 5:1. That is sulfamethoxazole 400 milligram and trimethoprim 80 milligram. It is also available as double strength tablets where sulfamethoxazole is 800 milligram and trimethoprim as 160 milligram. Now, sulfamethoxazole is chosen of all the sulfa drugs because it is absorbed and excreted. The kinetics of this drug is same as that of trimethoprim. The sulfonamide has structural resemblance to PABA and act by competitive blockade of the enzyme dihydrofolic acid synthetase, whereas trimethoprim interferes with a subsequent step with the action of dihydrofolic acid reductase. It will inhibit the enzyme dihydrofolic acid reductase, an enzyme which converts dihydrofolic acid to tetrahydrofolic acid. And this is an essential step in bacterial purine and DNA synthesis. Now we must be wondering that the second enzyme, that is a dihydrofolic acid reductase, is also present in humans. Then it is quite possible that trimethoprim will inhibit this enzyme as well. This does not happen because trimethoprim has 10,000 times more inhibitory effect on bacterial enzyme. That is, the susceptibility for bacterial enzyme is more than as compared to mammalian enzymes. That's why mammalian DHFR, dihydrofolic reductase, folic acid reductase, is not affected by trimethoprim. So we understand that the mutual combination of the sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim, they have synergistic action and they act in different steps in the process of formation of purine for purine synthesis and subsequently for DNA synthesis in bacteria. And this combined action is definitely going to be bactericidal in its activity because it acts at two different levels. That is, two components of cotrimoxazole have individually bacteriostatic activity. Individually, they will have bacteriostatic activity, but when they are combined, since they are acting in two different enzymes, they have bactericidal activity. The remaining pharmacology of this drug, cotrimoxazole, is similar to that of the other sulfa drugs. Okay, thank you.